If I ask you now, who would be happy when they eat chocolate? Please raise your hand. The second question is so simple. Who would be emotionally neutral when he eats chocolate? Please raise your hand. Well, it looks like you all have sweet tooth. That was exactly the idea that my father was passionate about. In 1986, when he started his small chocolate business, he went to a celebration, and he saw that people, they were really happy with each piece of chocolate. Chocolate was the symbol of the celebration at that time. He was really excited to start his own ideas, translate his own skills of making chocolates, and make people happy. In his mother's kitchen, started by making few pieces of chocolate. Then my grandmother told him that this is not a factory, move outside. He started his own shop in Damascus, and it took him a while. He then got married to my mother. Then I was born. Well, I'm telling you now, all the Syrian mothers, 99% of the Syrian mothers, they want their children to be doctors. And 1%, the other 1% wants them to be engineers. The other professions are not considered in the minds of the Syrian mothers. So when I was born, my father and my mother, they were just asking, what should we name him? My mother said, doctor. My father said, we should name him. He said, Tareq. She said, yes, Tareq, doctor. I was really passionate since I was born to be a physician. That was the really humanity profession on earth. And I was always trying to connect between my father's passion, between my family identity of making people happy in Syria, and my profession as treating people from their pains. Continued in Syria, our social life was amazing, living in one building with my grandmother in Damascus, the city that goes back around 5,000 years old. It's so sad now when you open Google and you type Syria, and the first thing you see is Syrian war, Syrian crisis, Syrian blood, Syrian victims. But Syria is not about that. Syria is the country when you go out in the old Damascus, in the old city, and you smell the jasmine. Syria is the city, is the country where the cities have impacts and achievements in the entire humanity history. The most old cultural region in the Middle East and maybe in the entire world. This social life, when we were living, all my relatives, having the supper every night, sharing stories and experiences, happiness, or the sadness, every struggles or challenges that the family could solve by together, by unity, as a community, the small unit. After the Syrian crisis started, while my father started exporting to the neighboring countries, to Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, and it started to Europe, hiring more than hundreds of Syrians in distribution networks around the country, more than 35 employees in the factory in Damascus. When the crisis started in our building, we stayed 5 nights in the basement without food, without water, without medicines. And then we had to leave to a safer place. I was then doing medicine in my 5th year in Damascus. And I was coming back one day from my university. I saw my brother, he was washing the car. I joined him, and a rocket hit near us. I couldn't see anything then. I was just asking my brother, are you fine? Please move your hand. Just show me that you are alive. That was so painful for me to stay in Syria after that day. And I told my family, it's not time to do medicine for me. It's time to survive for the entire family. After that, we hear that the factory was bombed. Our original home was burned, stolen, and then bombed by a plane. I have no idea what we have done for these people to do these horrible things for us. We were all living in one country. We are all brothers. We are all Syrians. That's the painful thing. We had to leave Syria, and that was the hardest decision we have ever taken. Past the Lebanese borders, we became refugees, and we stopped the car. We said, where shall we go now? There are no place that we can go to. We went to the United Nations the other day in Lebanon, and they called me, Tareq Hadhad, number 001348. I went to them, I said, I'm not a number. I'm a human being. Before just 1 week, when I was in Syria, I had dreams. I was going to become a physician. My father had a big chocolate company, which was the second largest chocolate company in the Middle East. That was really horrible things. When I went to a refugee camp to join the Syrian children there one night, and I hear them, they were screaming from the cold. How you can imagine that the cold would be painful to the degree that the children will start screaming of it. Without food, without medicines in the refugee camps, they couldn't go out, they couldn't work. Moving to Lebanon, which is the small country in the Middle East that received 2 million Syrians, that was too much to Lebanon to handle. The Lebanese population is 4 million. They received 2 million Syrians. That was really too much. And they had their own problems. They don't have the infrastructure to receive this huge number. I said to myself, I'm not going to stay in refugee camp. I have an ability to help. I joined the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and I started volunteering with them, with the World Health Organization, taking advantage of my experience in the healthcare field, etc. Then we joined like a local team, started getting fundraising to help the Syrian get into the hospitals in Lebanon. Then I thought about the idea of traveling to continue my medical studies. I remembered when my friend, when I was in Syria, he called me, he got invitation to come to Canada, and he called me, he said, I arrived to Canada, and, well, everybody speaks English. Well, actually, I saw the person who received me is from the Middle East. The other person who received me at the hotel is from Africa. I saw some Korean and some people from Far East Asia. Some people, their accents are from United Kingdom and from Holland, some Polish people. He said, but I couldn't see any Canadians. I told him, that was in 2005. I told him, there should be some Canadians there. After that, it took me a while till I realized that this is Canada, the nation that received immigrants from all over the world to be one nation, to be one country, to celebrate their differences. To celebrate their differences, and where everybody is welcome to bring his own culture. When I was in Lebanon, went to the Canadian embassy, and the first thing that I was shown is the Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedom. Then we decided to come to Canada, went back home, I got the scholarship. Then they called me, they said, we are sorry, your age is 23, and the age limit for the scholarship is 22. That was frustrating. After 1 month, they called me again. They said, you are invited with your family to travel to Canada. Went back home. And I told the family that, well, we are accepted to go to Canada. They said, Canada is too cold. We waited 6 months till we did the interview with the embassy. Then we traveled. Arriving at the Canadian airports. I arrived before my family. Then my family followed me after 2 weeks. Arriving at the Canadian airports means that you, as a Syrian newcomer, would become Canadian since the first time you are on the airplane. The Canadians has done this thing amazingly, where the other countries are closing their borders. They shipped us here with royal flights. On the airplanes, they were telling us about Canada, this amazing country where everybody can succeed, because they will offer them opportunities to succeed. We didn't know where we will come in Canada. I arrived in Toronto. They asked me, where are you going? I said, I have no idea where's my destination. They said, you will travel to Halifax. I said, what's Halifax? They said, when I arrived in Halifax, they said, you will not stay in Halifax. You will travel to Antigonish. And I Googled Antigonish. I even couldn't find it on Google. Open the map. If you can see the map now, if you can call this map nowhere, Antigonish is the middle of nowhere. My family arrived with me after that to Antigonish when we received them at the airports. They started their lives. They started to get used to double Canadian hockey teams. Well, actually, I lost all my Canadian friends after first week because maybe I was a fan of unpopular team. We continued then. The family found everything ready. People in Antigonish, they worked for around a year to prepare everything for the entire family. So when they arrived, they find the house, they found the schools, they found the education system for everybody. The healthcare was ready. The employment committees, they were all well organized to receive the Syrians because they really knew that the Syrians, they lost their country. They didn't choose to come to Canada. They were forced to leave their countries, and they were looking for a place that can carry them, that can embrace them. None of the immigrants would be happy to leave his homeland. We were really forced to leave our homeland, Syria, but we were really proud and honored to be on the Canadian soil now. After people in Antigonish, they worked really hard to help us. After the first month in Canada, the culture shock started, as usual, for any newcomer. I went to the family and I told them that this is time for us to start giving back to the community. They worked really hard. They didn't care about our religion, about our background, about our culture. They didn't care about any of these things. So we should really start to think how we can give back to these people. My father said, okay, you can go back to medicine, but it will take you time here. I started actually the process to become a physician in Canada, but then I told my family that we can start our own business. My father started making few pieces of chocolate. Went to the farmer's market, everything was gone in a few minutes. That was a very encouraging start for him. Then he continued making chocolate to a bigger occasions. We realized that we are here for a message. And for entrepreneurship, I have a concept for it. The first is being unique and equal, being different than the others, being remarkable. The second thing is you should go out, you should speak out about your ideas. If you have the most brilliant ideas on earth, if you don't go out and tell the others, nobody will come to you and knock on your door and ask you, what are you thinking, sir? That's very major concept. We worked on it. Then we said that we should name our business. It was straightforward. After 2 weeks of fighting inside the family, we said, peace by chocolate. Peace is the most noble value in the entire human beings that they should fight for. Without peace, you cannot go to your university, you cannot work, you cannot build yourself. And buy is our bridge to the Canadian society. And chocolate is the magic product of happiness. Continued by then, our chocolate company was really expanding very fast. We were honored to donate to the Canadian Red Cross to help in relief efforts in Fort McMurray. After 3 months, we were sitting on the supper table. I received a call. My friend told me that the Prime Minister is talking about you in the United Nations Summit in New York. I said, are you kidding me? Like, I couldn't believe that. It was really a huge honor to be inspiring the entire humanity all over the globe. The thing that started in a small place in Antigonish has inspired lots of people because it was real. Because 50 people in Antigonish, they helped us to build our factory. Plumbers, electricians, business counselors, everybody could ever help, even the marketers. After that, I received a call after 1 month from the Prime Minister's office. They said, the Prime Minister really wants to meet you. That was really a huge honor. And the success of the business was really growing very fast. Having all of these successes encouraged us to do more and more and open this. It's not chocolate business, as you all think. It's all about a message from the newcomers to their new community. By the end of 2016, we were one of the top 15 chocolate companies in the country. We will be always honored to be in a country that welcomed us. We will be always proud to the country that has given us such unlimited joy and happiness. Peace by Chocolate today has 3 messages to you. The first, the best method to face anxiety and fear is offering embracing and welcoming community. The second message, kindness begets kindness, and fear begets fears and anxiety. The third one, and the most important, whenever in your life you will face challenges, but now you will have 2 options. You will not have a third one. The first option is to sit down and complain, and I say, I can't do anything. I can't do that. And the second option is to dig down and find solution and be creative. And the second one works way more better. Trust me. Thank you so much.